Who actually rebels against God more than anybody else? Historically, Satan. Satan, because he rebelled against God, because of his pride, because he ultimately said, who are you to tell me what to do? I control my own narrative. I control my own destiny. But they are notorious for something called the great lie. It's a lie so big, and it's the lie that is the only thing that's empowering them right now on this earth. But little did he understand and know that the IDF and Israel occupied Belize, and all of the officials were corrupted. The devil is deception. Satan's game is deception. He has used the fake Jews and the Pharisees to pave the way for his works. What's up, guys? This is God, Grit, and Glory, and I am your host, Vito Creed. We talk about the stuff that most people stay quiet about: Jesus, business, politics, and occasionally a few conspiracy theories. No scripts, no filters, just straight up truth. So join us as we unravel and speak truth. Who actually rebels against God more than anybody else? Do you guys know? Historically, Satan. Satan, he got cast out of heaven because he rebelled against God. Because of his pride, because he ultimately said, who are you to tell me what to do? I control my own narrative. I control my own destiny. And he got together and he convinced a third of the population of angels that they didn't have to bow down to God, that they could speak for themselves. And ultimately, he created a rebellion. And God cast them out along with a third of these angels. And it is said that they are horrendously looking. God cursed them. So they look like, that's why we call them demons now, because a third of these angels are demons. Israel's really notorious for these types of tactics. This is what they do. They genuinely turn around. And I've already talked about this in a few previous podcasts. They'll turn around and they will use tactics where they'll say, you know, if a person dies from starvation, he dies from starvation. Let me back up a little bit. So the Talmud says that if a person is tied up, a goy, a Gentile is tied up, and he dies of starvation, it is not because he's tied up that he dies from starvation. It's because he dies from starvation. It's like saying, well, if I shoot somebody and somebody happens to be standing there for whatever reason and he gets shot and dies, it's his own fault that he's standing there. That's the same illogical stupidity that goes hand in hand with some of this reasoning that they have. And this isn't Talmud. I mean, this is over 2,000 years of arguments of rabbis going back and forth and arguing with one another and trying to see who can outdo each other's insanity and each other's craziness. They try to reason and they think they're the most reasonable people on this planet. But they are notorious for something called the great lie.
These were arrests on a massive scale. Amongst those taken into custody by the FBI were city mayors, politicians and religious leaders. The authorities needed buses to cope with the sheer scale of the operation.
New Jersey's corruption problem is one of the worst, if not the worst, in the nation. Corruption is not only pervasive, it has become ingrained in New Jersey's political culture.
It's thought that religious charities controlled by prominent rabbis were used to launder cash. The arrests were part of a 10-year operation that uncovered money laundering on an international scale, as well as corruption and the sale of human organs in the US, Switzerland and Israel.
The list of people we arrested sounds like it should be the roster for a meeting of community leaders. But sadly, they weren't meeting in a boardroom this morning. They were in the FBI booking room.
Prosecutors say one rabbi was dealing in human kidneys for transplant for a decade, buying them from vulnerable people at a huge profit. The scale of the corruption across New Jersey has outraged residents.
It just goes back to the belief that Hudson County is incredibly corrupt. And I thought we were making headway and becoming less corrupt.
The number of arrests was remarkable even for New Jersey, where more than 130 public officials have pleaded guilty or been convicted of corruption in the last 10 years.
It's a lie so big, And it's the lie that is the only thing that's empowering them right now on this earth. If it wasn't for this one thing, by the way, and right now, currently what's going on in Poland, it's been going on for a long time, is the Jews are poisoning the Polish people. You guys think that even if Israel suffered, tens of thousands of deaths, that they wouldn't ever retaliate against Germany? They wouldn't ever retaliate against Poland? You guys are literally in denial. All of these countries that tried to get rid of the Jews, which they actually asked them to leave at first, but they refused to leave. And they said, this is our nation, because they like to infiltrate and they like to occupy. That is their prerogative. That is their forte. They love occupying. What does occupying mean? Occupying pretty much means you come into a place like the migrants are doing in France and in England and in Scotland and Ireland, and all of these countries are getting invaded, and they occupy, they invade, they overtake, they overthrow, and they say, no, this is our country now. They're sort of like, they ultimately become aliens. They're like aliens in like basically invading Earth and saying, hey, no, we're taking over your entire globe right now. And you guys have to abide by our rules now. That's literally what Israelis do. And they've created things in such a way where now it's become almost impossible, literally almost impossible to argue with anything they say, because they are so far into victimhood. There has never been in the history of time any other race that has been so far in their own victimhood that they can manipulate themselves out of just about anything. They do this on such a grandiose scale that anything you say, you question. They're passing laws, they're passing rules, they're passing bills in all sorts of different countries. They're invading Belize. There's actually this clip I want to share specifically about John McAfee.
I am actually, because I'm not sure I'm going to say it or not.
Well, it sounds like you're egging me on to ask you. I want to respect your privacy.
I am actually, because I'm not sure I will say it. I've never said it ever.
Well, if you want me to...
Not in 6 years since I left Belize have I ever stated why.
Do you want to?
Absolutely.
Okay, well then, you're welcome.
Okay, so when I went on the run in Belize, I had friends in the U.S. Embassy in Belize. I knew what was coming down. I'm not stupid. I had arranged with the head of security. I was going to come in. He said, sir, we have it from the highest authority. We are not to allow you entry into the U.S. Embassy. Understand me. Who was the highest authority of the State Department? Hillary Clinton. I'm an American citizen with a American passport. I'm sorry. I'm not wanted in America. I've got no crimes in America. Is it not a reason to say, I don't think I'm going to vote for you?
And yet you're here now.
For a month and a half, I was on the run. The reason that the government wanted to collect me was that after they had raided my property in 2012 in the jungle, shot my dog, abused me, destroyed $500,000 worth of my property over a bogus charge, I was pissed off. And so I donated to many secretaries within the government laptop computers, really nice ones that were preloaded with viral spyware. Within a week, the entire government computer system was under my control. I was watching, monitoring, listening. I was looking for information that they had set me up for that raid. I didn't find that. I did find out that the Minister of National Defense was the largest drug trafficker in all of Central America. And the Minister of Immigration, the largest human trafficker.
Well, we don't want to get killed by them either, so we're probably not going to share that.
That's fine.
McAfee in the 80s was a tycoon. He was a billionaire. He was a very wealthy man. Very, very, very wealthy. And he was an entrepreneur at heart, and he was always looking for an opportunity, just like any other tycoon. And he's seen that there was this virus that came out, on a computer, and he's like, oh, what is a virus? It's a program that basically overtakes something, and he created an antivirus. And he made millions off of it. He was worth like almost $100 million at one point. And by the way, back in the late 80s, early 90s, that was a lot of money. And so what ended up happening was he decided, oh, I want to actually go and create an antidote It's called the antibiotic. And he actually went to Belize and started his own plant and was trying to find a cure for this antibiotic. And they were mass producing it. But little did he understand and know that the IDF and Israel occupied Belize, and all of the officials were corrupted. Israel had already gotten their claws into this country, and they came and they raided their operation. They overthrew their operation and basically said, either you pay us millions of dollars or we're going to shut this down. And so, of course, he refused to pay them anything, and he got even. What he did is he actually used these beautiful women to then give all of these people, all these corrupt officials, laptops, and these laptops were bugged. So he was collecting data on dozens of local governments and officials, and they were getting all of this data. And he said, I was going to leak all of your data. And so he warned them, and he said, I'm going to leak all of your data. So ultimately, he went on actually a ship embargo where he was overseas, basically in uncharted waters, basically like a drifter in the ocean, because he couldn't go anywhere. Anywhere he would go, people wanted his head because the Israelis had put a bounty on his head. And Interpol had intersected him in some foreign waters, had said, hey, you have a tax warrant for your arrest. They obviously extradited him. They sent him over to America. And he had started working on getting an attorney and getting an appeal and getting stuff going. And they found him hung in his cell. And he had something on his arm that ultimately said that if they ever kill me, it wasn't me. And he had warned them, actually. He said, if anything happens to me, I have information on all of your officials, and I'm going to leak it. I'm going to be a whistleblower, and I'm going to leak it to the media. So what they did was they actually went and they found every possible residence that he had ever occupied or had ties to, and they went over there and bombed it. And that included one place here in Miami, and it was a condo. And the condo actually collapsed. You know what's crazy about that collapse? This is actually, I live in Florida, so this kind of hits home for me. Dissent actually brought in the IDF to take care of this. A foreign entity, government, IDF, Israeli Defense Force, comes into our country to raid and to take care of this condo, this collapse. And they shield this to media and to all news that this is actually because of a collapse, because of lack of engineering. Oh, we have to do more maintenance on our buildings. Like, are you freaking kidding me? So why would you bring in the IDF? And what's interesting is after this building had collapsed partially, they went in there and they exploded the rest of it to make sure the debris was all hauled away. They said, oh, it's beyond construction. We have to tear it down. So they put some bombs on it and literally tore it down. And you know who did this? The IDF. So explain to me why this happened. And to further their big lie, they had to pass legislation to ensure that no building would ever happen to another building again. And you know what this did for our economy and the condo industry? They had to go into all of these condos along the beaches from all the way up into Pensacola, all the way up and around to Jacksonville. They wrapped all of these areas and they required an inspection that needed you to inspect these buildings a minimum once every 2 years to make sure there was no structural damage or structural integrity issues. They created obviously jobs for a lot of contractors because this became a requirement and necessity, but this became a huge burden because what was actually going on is these vultures, these companies seen this as an opportunity to take advantage of all these condo owners and all these old people. And they would come in and they would hire their own engineers and they would say, hey, your building's about to collapse. There's some structural issues here and here and here. And they would scaffold the exterior of your building and then charge you $2 or $3 million to repair it. And then they would do something called a special assessment. And then the special assessment would then distribute all of this money to all of these individual people that would have to pay it. So if there was like 20 homeowners that live in this condo, imagine having, $2 million that's equally distributed amongst 20 people. I mean, let that sink in. You could pay like $100,000 of a special assessment because they found structural integrity issues with your building. So you were slapped with a fee, all because of a cover-up. All because DeSantis wanted to be part of the cover-up. So for people out there that are saying DeSantis is a great governor, he's a horrible governor. He is more corrupt than the rest of them. Anybody that takes money from AIPAC, anybody that goes to the Wailing Wall in Israel and kisses it and wears the yarmulke on the back of their head, you are a sellout. You are a disgrace and you are demon possessed. Because as soon as you touch that wall, as soon as you put on that yarmulke, you are worshiping Baal. You are worshiping Malik. You are worshiping Baphomet. It's a goat. It's a satanic goat that they worship. They worship Baal. They worship Malik. They worship Baphomet. This is what happens. And we get sucked into these narratives. We get sucked into all of these narratives because we want to believe that these sort of things exist. And even in the engineers that had reviewed all this, they said, no, wait a minute. This is impossible. The fact that there was a little bit of a structural integrity issue and the whole thing collapsed. And when it got leaked that John McAfee had owned a unit inside that condo, they brought in the IDF so fast and basically devoured, leveled that place and tried to get all of the people out of there so people would stop talking about it as fast as possible because they didn't want people to know. And these stories became a conspiracy. These stories became a huge cover-up. And they said, no. DeSantis is one of us. Yeah, sure he is. Anytime the IDF is being brought into America, they're covering up some sort of corruption. This is exactly what was going on when Charlie Kirk got shot. And the IDF was at Fort Huachuca. And they were meeting with Pete Hegseth and Erica Kirk. This was what was going on over there. I'm telling you guys, this is exactly what's going on under our noses. And there's only a handful of people out there that are brave enough and courageous enough to stand up and speak truth. This is the purpose of this podcast. It's to point out tyranny. It's to point out falsehoods. It's to point out demonic forces. That is the only purpose, is to educate people, to make sure people are not fooled by what is going on around us. There are a handful of you guys that will take anything at face value as long as the government will say it. Got into a small debate with a guy on Instagram today. And it only took me about 30 seconds to scroll through his Instagram to see how much of a fool he was. Pictures of him bragging about himself or arguing about how smart he is or how he's smarter than everybody. And then he was arguing that, about racism and misogyny because this one pastor got on his page and said, if you are a woman pastor or lead some sort of leadership role in your church, you are not following God's covenant. And boy, did the comments roll out. Oh, you're a misogynist. You're a sexist. You're a racist. You're a bigot. Instantly, the attacks, they start coming out because people refuse to believe the Bible. They want to cherry pick. They want to cherry pick all of these things that are not relevant to the Bible. The Bible is very clear. We don't want to make it clear. And of course, when we have the type of influences around us like the Jews, the synagogues of Satan, that pretend to be the Jews and create big lies and deceive and convince people to be Zionists, why are we surprised? Why are we surprised? The devil is deception. Satan's game is deception. He has used the Jews, the fake Jews, and the Pharisees to pave the way for his works. That's literally what it is. So we will expound on this some more. For now, this is it. Vito Creed, God, grit, and glory. Stay tuned.